Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and this is going to be a little bit of a different type of video, but I have gotten a lot of comments, questions, messages asking about my physical appearance. And no, it's actually not about the hair and the beard. It's about my muscularity, which is kind of like a weird thing to say. But anyways, a lot of people have been asking like what happened to me, and so I want to talk about that in today's video. Let's get right into it. Now, before we do a deep dive into what I did to go from sub 180 pounds to over 220 pounds at my peak weight, I'm actually now down to 215 pounds, and that happened over the course of a year. Most of the weight gain was muscle. I want to give my reasons outside of just answering YouTube comments to make this video, because there's a lot of YouTube comments that I get that I don't make videos. I feel really strongly about this particular topic because there's a lot of junk information out there in terms of just how to live a healthy life and how to build muscle naturally. And so I'm hoping that people that watch this video, and more specifically, men around my age or younger, will watch this and realize that there is absolutely no reason to ever touch any sort of performance enhancing drugs. And on top of that, there is absolutely no reason to buy any of the crap supplements that are out on the market. So I'm actually not going to try to sell you any sort of snake oil. I'm going to hopefully convince you to not use the snake oil. Anyways, let's get into it. So 30 pounds in 1 year, really crazy, but let's talk about my baseline because that'll help explain how this was possible. So my baseline leading up to this weight gain was 10 years of training. Now that training mostly consisted of powerlifting, so going into the gym, squat, bench, deadlift, and then the accessories around those lifts. For the first 5 years, my body weight sat around 160 to 175 pounds. For the latter 5 years, my body weight was around 170 to 185 pounds. Again, anyone who's lifted weights understands that your weight fluctuates. Like if you get sick, for example, gosh, sometimes I've lost like 15, 20 pounds. It's pretty crazy. But that was kind of the range when it comes to weight, and that was the training style that I partook in during this time. Now, when it comes to diet, which is also very important with this, I did eat meat, but no red meat. So basically just chicken and turkey. I was very against red meat at the time. It was something that I was told growing up is absolutely horrible. And then outside of that, just like basically not the healthiest diet, but mostly whole foods. So like eggs, cheese. I got all my fats from plant-based sources because again, I thought that was the best, most of my fats. Obviously eggs, that's an animal source, but I ate a lot of avocado, a lot of peanut butter, right? A lot of nut sources for the fats, some fruits, some vegetables here and there, not a lot, if I'm being completely honest. And then, I did eat grains. So pasta, bread, all that kind of stuff. Bread I wasn't so big into. Pasta though, man, I ate a lot of pasta, rice, and all of that. So whole foods, that was what my diet consisted of over these 10 years. But the biggest thing to note is I tried to keep animal fats to as low as I possibly could. And what this led to was, I think, actually really solid. Like I had no problems with my results at this point. So again, I was at the end of this, I was at around 180 pounds, a little bit under that. And I was able to squat and deadlift over 500 pounds. I was able to bench over 300 pounds. And although I didn't look like a, big beefy bodybuilder, I had some muscle. Like when people saw me, they wouldn't think that I was like some crazy strong person. Like nobody assumed that I could squat as much as I could squat, for example. But they looked at me and they said, oh, this guy is in relatively good health. The exciting part of the video, which is the weight gain. So before I get into this, I want to put a disclaimer that I am not an expert whatsoever. This is purely anecdotal. So I recommend you do your own research before you make any sort of massive lifestyle changes. So the first big change that I made was to my diet, and here are the major changes. So first off, I incorporated red meat into my diet for the first time in my life. Again, I had had red meat prior to this point, but most of my protein before this was chicken, eggs, turkey, and then some plant-based sources like quinoa, for example. I started eating red meat and I started eating a lot of it, a pound per day. And on top of eating a pound of red meat per day, I also incorporated some liver into my diet as well. And the results just from this were insane. I didn't change any other part of my diet, just added this. And in the first 6 months, I just absolutely blew up. Most of the weight gain happened in those first 6 months. I mean, I remember my wife at the time, she didn't understand what was happening. She's like, how is this possible? Because again, sub 180 pounds. And then I would say in the first 6 months, I was probably a little bit over 200 pounds. And then the last 6 months was the rest of the weight gain, where I ended up over 220 pounds. That was the first dietary change. And that was in the first 6 months. In the latter 6 months, I started to get rid of all of the grains out of my diet. So I went completely gluten-free at first, which part of that is because my daughter has celiacs, but part of it was also, hey, let's see if there's any sort of health benefits to this. And what I found is my inflammation went down a massive amount. And what this actually looked like in the gym is when I was stabilizing for a squat or a deadlift prior to this lifestyle change, I couldn't, like, I was getting really tight, but afterwards I felt like my core muscles were able to get so much tighter. Like my bloat just went down a massive amount. Like I didn't realize how much I was bloated until I wasn't bloated anymore. So those were the two big dietary changes, basically getting rid of grains out of my diet for the most part. I still have stuff here and there, and then adding red meat into my diet. Now, dietary stuff aside, the other thing that I started incorporating after the first 6 months was what I call functional strength training. So I started to do weird lifts in the gym like Zercher squats and Jefferson curls. Those made a big difference. Behind the back deadlifts, those are another weird one that strangely, again, they just make a huge difference. And what I felt with these lifts is they were working, like really pushing muscles that I wasn't able to get with the main power lifts. So like Zercher squats, for example, tons of like growth in my traps, and then a lot in the middle section of my back and my core. Just like they get pushed so much in that lift. And so I think that also helped out the fact that I was working muscle groups that I hadn't really worked all that much for the first 10 years of my training. When it comes to numbers, I would say that the diet probably made 70 to 80% of the progress that I experienced over this time period. And then the training changes were the next 20 to 30% that I made over this time period. Now, there are a few more things that I haven't mentioned in the video yet that I think also made this possible. Let's talk about that now. So first off, I don't drink caffeine ever. No pre-workout, no coffee, no caffeine. And I think this really helps out with keeping your training consistent because I don't have ups and downs. And on top of no caffeine, I also don't listen to music at the gym. Similar situation where you don't have ups and downs, right? If you're hyped up on caffeine and you have to find like the perfect song so you can go and lift weights, it makes it really hard to be consistent. Whereas, with my situation, I just go into the gym, I'm like this, every single workout. It's just, there's no hype. It's just calm the entire time. And it also makes sleeping so much easier because when you lift really heavy weights, it's actually hard to sleep anyways because, sometimes stuff hurts a little bit. And then on top of stuff hurting a little bit, your nervous system's kind of tweaking out because you just lifted a bunch of weight. And so taking caffeine out of the equation, and I've been doing this, like I just don't drink caffeine. So I think that helped out quite a bit. I sleep on the floor all the time. I think this also helps out a massive amount because lifting heavy weights puts a massive strain on your back. And so sleeping on the floor to where things get pulled out overnight, and it literally feels that way. Like I'll have my legs elevated a little bit and I can feel things kind of getting pulled out. Like it feels so fantastic, but I have zero pain whatsoever. So I think that also helps out with the recovery. To cap off this video, I want to give what I consider level-headed advice as someone who has been living the gym lifestyle for over 10 years at this point. So the first thing is performance-enhancing drugs are not worth it. Don't even look into them. Don't even consider them. Just throw that out of your mind. I have never personally used them, so I know some people will be critical of me talking about them as someone who's never used them. I have friends that have used them, and not only are they not as strong as I am, they're just not as physically capable, and they have all these hormone issues. Like, they're just not worth it whatsoever. It'll wreck your body, and you won't live as long. Just don't do them. The next thing that I would say is supplements are just snake oil. I don't take any sort of supplements whatsoever. You don't need them. I don't even take multivitamins. Like, I love the lifestyle that I live where all I do when I wake up is just go and eat food and then go about my day. I don't have to make some sort of caffeine concoction. I don't have to take 50 different pills just so that my body can function. And I'm not saying anything on people that have to take prescriptions. My wife has to take some prescriptions. I'm talking about like all the different supplements, like, oh, here's your testosterone supplement, here's your multivitamin, this and that. I don't have to do any of that. You can get everything you need from food. You just have to eat the right stuff, right? Red meat has a lot, and then fruit and vegetables also has a lot as well. And the next thing is just be patient with the process. Again, I've been lifting for over 10 years, look nothing like Arnold Schwarzenegger, but I'm extremely physically capable. I can, at this point, squat and deadlift well over 600 pounds. My bench is a little bit on the weaker side of things. I'm like mid 300s with that. I'm still trying to figure out that whole situation. I'm not blessed in the upper body region, but hopefully one day I'll get better at that. But in the real world, I can do everything that I need. Like my chickens, for example, their feed bags are 50 pounds each, and I can carry 2 to 4 of them, right? So 100 to 200 pounds, no problem whatsoever to get them out to the coop. Their little water container, that's like another thing that's like 50 pounds that I have to walk like 2 football fields to get it out. It doesn't tax me at all. Like my 85-pound backpack, I could take that and walk up the side of a mountain. And so you can become extremely physically capable naturally if you just have patience. Like it's going to take a lot of time. On top of being patient with the whole process, something else you should be patient with is the changes that come along the way. My lifestyle when I first started lifting was completely different than it is today. When I first started lifting, sleeping in a bed, living kind of like a normal American lifestyle, whereas now I sleep on the floor. I fast 3 times per week. What that looks like is I go without food for 24 hours, 3 times per week. I'm actually doing a multi-day fast right now. And I don't know if you guys can see, but the sunlight's horrible. I am not struggling for food whatsoever. Like you can fast all the time and still get more than enough calories and still make tons of progress in the gym. But that's another big change is fasting. And then dietarily, like right now, my diet is red meat. I do incorporate a little bit of chicken and turkey here and there, tons of eggs, lots of fruit, lots of vegetables, and I don't really eat grains anymore. What I've discovered as I've changed my diet and as I've kind of dialed my nutrition in is grains just make me fat. And I think that's why we give them to cows and pigs before we slaughter them, is like they're such a good thing to just like add bulk, but they don't really do anything when it comes to energy. Like I feel way more energy when I go and eat a steak than when I go and eat a bowl of pasta. Like a bowl of pasta just puts me to sleep. So the point I'm trying to make here, just be patient with the overall process, be patient with the changes, and listen to your body. Everyone's body is going to be a little bit different. Some of you might find that your ideal form of, exercising, for example, is hiking or skiing or something like that. Or some of you might find that it's similar to me where it's lots of intense weightlifting, and these different types of exercise are going to necessitate different lifestyles and different diets and all of that. So anyways, hopefully that helps out. I'll see you.